Chapter 26. So I get this urgent message to get over here. Randy sat down at John's table. From your voice, I thought maybe Freud had shown up at your work. No, Wilder, John said. You'll never believe this. Not only was Richard Downley her guardian, he was her husband. Whoa. I know, it's crazy. So the big question is, why? Why isn't his name on her documents? Are you sure? They were really married? Yes. And it's not on any document? No. How do you know your patient isn't telling you stories? Maybe next week you'll find out she was married to Abe Lincoln. No, that's not my patient. You sure? Seems strange to me. It is strange, and we need to figure out why. Why isn't there any information about him in the files? Because he doesn't want to be associated with having a crazy wife. Can't say I blame him. But why Clearcreek? Why not? Isn't it supposed to be some great facility? But why would he care? I don't think it was Clearcreek's good reputation that drew him to the place. There's some type of contract. There's some arrangement between Dr. Gravers and Downley. Something they both are gaining by keeping her there. Sherlock Sanders, Randy said. This should be interesting. I just want answers. For over an hour, John speculated, hypothesized, and drew inferences. Randy offered his own set of ideas. Later, John sat alone. He studied possibilities, shaped his conclusion, and surmised the forces that were keeping Rebecca at Clearcreek. The following day, a patient's teeth made contact with John's arm. A 79-year-old woman streaked through the ward, and deranged Al had flashbacks of his boxing days, with one swing barely missing John's neck. Dr. Sanders was tired. The new schedule, along with his lack of attachment to the geriatric set of patients, was too much. He turned to Dr. Landerson for help. It's not working out for me, he said. We sort of figured that, Dr. Landerson said. So do you want to leave? What? John asked. What kind of question was that? All he needed was a better group, one he was more qualified to work with. He cautiously rephrased his request. I was hoping that if it's possible, well, I don't want to be with the geriatric unit anymore. It's too intense for me. There's no connection. I think I'd be a better match for another group. Some people have what it takes and others don't. I'm real sorry, Gary, but I guess I'm not one of those who's cut out for that particular group. Would you consider switching around my rotation? Seems like you've already taken that liberty. What? We know, John. Know what? About Rebecca. What were you thinking? What could he say? There was no acceptable explanation. How do you know? Is that really important? No, I guess not. Did you really believe we wouldn't find out? Did you think your patient wouldn't say something? Especially when you were telling her things contrary to Dr. Milton's efforts? So it came from Rebecca. Really, John? Landerson's eyes grew wide. What were you thinking? She had a fight with Dr. Milton last week. Said her other doctor was helping her to leave the hospital. She wanted to know why he wasn't helping her too. John looked down at the floor. The temperature in the small office was hot, almost unbearable. Dr. Landerson continued. When he told her you weren't her doctor anymore, she corrected him. Told him you come in the evening. In this particular instance, we looked into it. A few nurses have been keeping an eye on you, and Rebecca's story proved true. I'm shocked. I don't know what to say. John kept his eyes on the ground until the silence hurt. Gary, look, I'm sorry. I know what I did was completely out of line, but I wish I could make you see where I'm coming from. You left me with no choice. I didn't know what to do. She was counting on me. She trusted me. She needed me at exactly the time you wanted to take me away from assisting her. I know you don't understand, but... John, the director's voice was firm. What you have done is unethical. It goes against everything we stand for in this profession. Instead of detaching yourself, you have submerged yourself. It is appalling and shocking. The entire staff feels violated. We have to change procedures because we now have to question the motives and integrity of the people who work here. And instead of helping Rebecca, You've confused her. Instead of bringing solutions, you've increased the problems in her understanding and her mental health. You're right. My actions were out of line. They were wrong. I understand that. But there is one thing I have to disagree with. Rebecca is better because of the aid I've given her. I wish you would just take the time to see that. Sanders, I've tried to assist you since the day you arrived. At this point, there's nothing I can do for you. Then do something for Rebecca. What are you missing? Landerson shook his hands at John. We are doing something for Rebecca. I'm missing less than you think. I know about the arrangement Dr. Gravers has with Rebecca's ex-husband. Landerson shrugged his shoulders. I don't know what you're talking. I know the true reason Rebecca's here. His hands clutched into fists. If that were the case, you would clearly see a woman with a very serious mental illness, and you wouldn't go to such painful extremes to confuse her. How long are you planning to keep her here? As long as she needs. Or as long as she keeps this place alive. Sanders, I don't know what this is about, but whatever it is, it's of no consequence to you. Then talk to Dr. Gravers. Have him explain things to you. No, you can talk to Gravers. Right now, he's in his office waiting to speak to you. If it had been pointless to explain his efforts to Landerson, no hope lay ahead. Slowly, John's feet guided him down the dark hallway toward his foe. Overhead, the raucous cooling system churned out air, making the path drafty and cold. Against the dim artificial light, the past presidents' faces flickered and ridiculed. John turned away from the portraits and noticed a small window against the wall. The grand portraits had overtaken onlookers' attention and had left the small window hidden, undetected. He glanced through the glass. Outside, a thicket hindered rays of sunlight from entering the hallway. Instead, only shadows guttered across the dirty, water-stained pane. On the base of the inside window sill, 3 dead flies rested on their backs, their legs motionless in the air. Outside, the corners of the glass were saturated with creamy spider webs, silky threads stuck, twisted, tied together. A young fly, still alive, was caught in the trap. The creature struggled and sent itself deeper down into cords that clasped its tiny body. Out of the shadows, a hairy spider emerged and eagerly approached its afternoon meal. John rejected the temptation to watch the work of death commence and instead assented to face his own adversary. Your termination begins immediately, Dr. Gravers said. John shifted against the small cushioned seat. So you're dismissing me? Of course I am. The dark eyes were livid. Dr. Gravers was yelling. Spit was flying. I've never had a doctor violate such rules. The vast amount of standards you have breached. You've caused more problems than anyone at this facility. Anyone. The damage you've done is irreparable. Clearcreek has suffered terribly. What about Rebecca's suffering? Yes, absolutely. She has suffered the most since you came here. Both Dr. Landerson and I feared the long-term damage she would experience due to your unprofessional interference. As soon as I recognized what was happening, I tried to stop it, but still, you continued to go against orders, interfering however you could. It's dreadful to think of the harm you've caused her. The grief felt by the entire staff is inexpressible. Rebecca's situation had been abused, and now the president was willing to lie and say he cared for her welfare. Hot anger squelched his previous fear. No longer could John's words be restrained. It's the financial security. What? That's all you care about? It's what she brings to you. That's what you're interested in. There was no turning back. The accusation was out. The soundless room absorbed the shock of this statement. Now, all John needed was verification of the truth. I beg your pardon, Dr. Gravers said. John's eyes locked with the president's. Neither man dared to look away. Both stared ruthlessly, waiting for the other to retreat. John wanted to read those dark eyes, just as they were trying to read his inner soul. Dr. Gravers, I know about Richard Downley. I know that he was Rebecca's husband. I know about Rebecca's money and the arrangement you and Mayor Downley made. Dr. Gravers smiled. The dark eyes danced in amusement. And what arrangement is that, Dr. Sanders? John dropped the gaze. Were his assumptions correct? If false, John would be ruined. He would lose any power he had to assist Rebecca. His respect destroyed. He would be an even greater disgrace to Clearcreek. The consequences seemed heavy, but there was no other choice. The president cleared his throat. Dr. Sanders, I can't spend all day being entertained by your absurd statements. I need to sign your termination papers and be done with you. So if there is no more for you to say, then you cut a deal with Downley. John's breathing was sharp. Really? He wanted Rebecca out of his life forever. He wanted to remove the threat of her generating bad publicity for his campaigns. He had the money you needed to keep this place alive. So together, you developed an arrangement that would benefit both of you, all at the cost of Rebecca's well-being. Dr. Gravers leaned back into his leather armchair. A sick smirk was plastered to his face. I find your assessment very entertaining. Why is Downley's name not on Rebecca's files? It's all how you want to perceive the situation. Allow me to give you some insight. Yes. John's voice was firm, but he was sweating. Please. You overlook the fact that Rebecca has a legitimate illness. We have the facilities to care for her, and that was what Mr. Downley wanted. He wanted a place where he knew she would receive the best care available. That's why he brought her here. Now the financial agreements we have worked out are of no concern to you. For the first time, John noticed how hollow the president's face appeared. The eyes lacked expression, sympathy, care, concern. They were fake. So were the words. However, these words from Dr. Gravers encouraged and strengthened John. A reliable connection had been made. There was some validity to his interpretation and assumptions. Downley is content because he has walked away with her inheritance, John said. As long as you keep her here, she's no threat to him. And you've every intention of making this her permanent home. You've made more money from her than any of the other residents. It's become a security exchange between the two of you. He pays you to keep her quiet, and you took her for the extra money that would keep this place going. Dr. Gravers laughed. The sound was loud and wicked. Chills scattered down John's spine. How naive you are. Dr. Gravers' lips curled. You are very set on finding evil here, aren't you? You cannot accept that you are the only flaw to this great establishment. You have to try and dig up stories in hopes to appear less a failure. Sanders, let me put your mind at ease. All is well here. Your allegations are false. Dr. Gravers leaned across his desk. I owe you no explanations for my actions, but I want you to understand a few things. So listen. First, let us not forget the purpose of your presence in my office. Whereas all my actions have been perfectly legal, you, on the other hand, have put our facility in jeopardy of being cited for malpractice. This little stunt you pulled is extremely disturbing. I plan to file a lawsuit against you, which would destroy your future in the psychiatric world. Second, you obviously have struggled to do your homework to understand things that are none of your business. Downley was willing to give Clearcreek a very large donation. Dr. Gravers paused, leaned back into his chair, then laughed again. Without doubt, I would not turn away a generous gift for this establishment. But all of Rebecca's bills have been waived. John voiced this speculation. Downley provided us with a large contribution. How could I turn around and demand payment for her entrance and living fees? That would be ludicrous. But you did have Rebecca's fees waived. What difference does it make? Her bills were paid. The method is not important. Basically, I deducted her expenses from the donation. There's nothing wrong with what I've done. We're a private entity. I can decide how this place is governed and run. I certainly don't need to justify my actions to you or anyone. You receive a donation every year, and in return, he claims to be a noble donor of your nonprofit facility. With that type of write-off, he pays no taxes. The reasoning behind his donations are up to him. That has nothing to do with Clearcreek. If it's peace of mind you're looking for, I want justice for Rebecca. John said. Fine. Justice has been given. Allow yourself to believe the treatments and care she has received have been funded by her inheritance. Everyone's getting what they rightfully deserve. That's exactly it. That money is really her money, not his. Once again, that has nothing to do with me or the operations of Clearcreek. That is between Downley and her. But he does have her money. I would imagine a fair ruling was established when they divorced. Not if she was already at Clearcreek. What should Rebecca spend her inheritance on? Her needs. And that is what has been done. This is what she needs. It all has been taken care of correctly. No, it hasn't. Well, Sanders, again, I will restate the point that you seem to continue to forget. Miss Rebecca Brownell has a mental illness, which brings me back to the ultimate reason why Richard Downley brought her here, and why she is still here. There are other ways to help her, and you clearly are not the source to offer that assistance. Your absence will bring a great sense of relief to this establishment. We've witnessed the effects of your experimental techniques, and it has caused tension and additional problems for all of us. My one wish for you, Dr. Sanders, is that you realize how powerful a psychiatric force of doctors we can be. We shape lives. We can either help to build up a person or further their destruction. You should not be allowed to practice until you understand this. The muscles in John's neck tightened. I fully recognize the power we have in this profession. Well, in that case, I think you've done a great disservice to this patient. Her progress has been hindered because of you. Can you not see that, Sanders? Something in John's brain snapped. Whether it was courage and nerves or the brink of his own insanity, he no longer would listen to the lies. No, Gravers. I am not responsible for what is happening to her. You are. The dark eyes were outraged. Dr. Gravers stared at John, and this time, John didn't look away. After tense, silent seconds, Dr. Gravers finally broke the unbearable connection. The president turned to the termination papers on his desk and scrawled his signature across the document. There's one thing you need to understand, John said. Considerable improvement has been made in regards to Rebecca's mental health. She's begun to realize her potential, and she wants to enjoy the good that life has to offer. So, Gravers, I do not consider my time with her a waste. Well then, besides the original obvious reason for your termination, you have clearly stated why it is necessary for us to have you leave this facility. Since I have nothing more to say about this issue, you're free to go. But I have more to say. And what is that? John, still feeling brave, stalled, taking a moment to collect his final words. What is it, Dr. Sanders? I have an institution to run. I don't have time. Yes, I'll admit I've possibly done some damage to Rebecca's situation. At least you can recognize that. Dr. Gravers placed his hands on the desk and began to stand. Wait. The president sank back into his seat. What? But the only damage I will have done comes as a result of you not allowing her to leave here. I've helped her become aware of an outside world that she's missing, a life she has every right to be a part of, but is not. She's ready to leave. She's ready to enjoy her life, to find value in it. And if you never allow her to leave, then yes, I have opened up her awareness, and that will cause her the greatest pain because she'll not be able to obtain the life she could have had. Now, I've told you, if you keep her here, after you know her true desires, whatever damage comes to her, that will rest on your conscience. Goodbye, Dr. Gravers. After John shut the office door, a peculiar lightness settled inside his heart. The evil eyes that held him prisoner had lost their power. He was free. By understanding the core of Clearcreek's values, John was content to leave this contaminated place. His work was almost done. One last thing remained.